Hi, I'm Steve Hare, and this is In Focus on NCW Life. I want to preface our conversation today with just a little comment here as an introduction to our guest, Steve Wright, who is the General Manager of the Chelan County Public Utility District. And if you're a Chelan County PUD customer and you're not yet aware of the plans for future rate increases, well, you must have been living in a vacuum over the past year because, speaking personally, the PUD has been very transparent as far as this process is concerned in setting the rates. And I've invited Steve to join us here to kind of share more information on that because certainly you would say, I'm sure, that the public has been engaged in this process from day one.
Well, we've been at this for more than a year now, so we're coming to the end of a long journey. And Steve, we appreciate you and the work that you've done because you've helped us to communicate with the county about what we are trying to do here and why we're trying to do it. It has been more than 9 years since we've increased rates, and our concern right now is fundamentally that I would say this is not a necessary action. We're not in financial trouble or anything like that. It's a prudent action. It's a way to protect, to make sure that we carry out the wishes of our customers. So we surveyed our customers. We asked them about, yes, at some point we will need to raise rates. We could hold off as long as possible, but we might be at risk of double-digit type rate increases at that point. Or we could do something in a more measured way, rate of inflation type increases over the next few years. 75% of our customers came back and said we would prefer a more measured approach, a more thoughtful approach to this, something that allows us to not have to make a big adjustment in our life because all of a sudden our electric bill went up in a way that we weren't anticipating. So they've been really clear with us, and that's been extremely helpful to us. And now we're just at the last step of that long journey to actually moving forward with implementation.
Well, let's talk about the current status of your finances at the PUD, because I think you've stated pretty clearly that you think you're in pretty healthy condition right now.
We are. We've had a couple of really great years, our best years ever financially. The last 2 years, and we're close to finishing up the books for 2019. This one will also have been in that top 3 of good years. So that has positioned us well. But there are a couple things going on here too. We also know that we need to make some big investments in our assets. So the reason that we have such low rates here in Chelan County is because we have these fabulous hydropower assets in particular. And they do take some rather large investments, and I would say there has been some underinvestment in the past. And so we're now substantially increasing our capital budgets, doing a lot more work out there, because the cool thing about Chelan PUD, the thing I've loved ever since I got here, was that this utility had a long history and culture of thinking long term, of not just focusing on what is the cost going to be next week or next month, but thinking about where do we want to be over the long run. That's how it got to the point of having the lowest rates in the country. So that philosophy continues today, and we're thinking about making those large investments to make sure that those assets are well taken care of and will continue to provide value to Chelan County customers long into the future.
So basically, you're looking at rate increases as a hedge against future problems.
Yes, that's exactly right. So what we've said is we sell a lot of power in the wholesale market, and we use the revenue from that to keep rates low in Chelan County. And those markets produce variable revenues. Can't be sure how much they will produce. We've seen a decline in those markets in the last few years as there's been a lot of solar and wind added into the Western power markets. If that was to continue to decline, we would be exposed to having to generate more revenue to cover what has revenue that we've had coming from someplace else. Basically, people from outside Chelan County have been helping us to keep our rates low. Having a reserve, a financial reserve, will protect against having to have some kind of large rate increase. And one of the things that we've committed to is the revenue we generate from this rate increase will go into a reserve. So it's going to sit there to be ready to help for if things were to get more difficult, either on the revenue side or if we had unanticipated costs, something that we don't know and don't see coming today. Then we've got a cover to make sure that we are not exposed to going back to our Chelan County customers and saying, oh my gosh, we're in trouble, and now we need for you to come up with large sums of money.
I know that there might be some people out there that are saying, well, geez, the PUD is going at new construction and capital projects with great speed, including your service center and headquarters that you're building out at Old Station. Is that in any way tied to the future rate increases?
No, because what those are cost-effective investments. We've done a lot of analysis to look at what's the least cost path over the long term for Chelan PUD customers. And I want to remind you, when the dams were built, it wasn't entirely clear that those were going to be cost-effective investments, but especially in the short term. But in the long term, the feeling of the folks who were in charge was, this is going to be a great value. Well, that turned out to be a really wise investment, that long-term thinking. We're applying that long-term thinking today to our hydro system assets, and we're applying it as well to the new service center that we're working on to consolidate all of our facilities in one place and be able to better serve the county from a more central location. Mm-hmm. But just on a cost basis alone, this is justified because it's less costly than trying to rehabilitate and modernize a set of aging facilities that are kind of spread around in a candidly not very thoughtful way. There's a much better way of doing this, and now more than 4 years of study that we put into that, we've concluded it's time to move forward.
Your staff has reported that even when we're talking about the current distribution system, the current operation and the cost of operating the PUD, the current rate structure is not sustainable.
Right. So currently what happens is our rates are heavily subsidized, again, with this revenue that we generate from other parts of the outside of Chelan County. Each year that goes by when we don't have a rate increase, that subsidy gets bigger and bigger, and the margin we make on sales outside of the county has been getting smaller. So we're not exposed in the near term to a big problem, but over the longer term, certainly costs will continue to increase. It's inflationary pressures alone will cause cost to increase. And what we're uncertain of is how much revenue we will generate from outside the county. So if that were to continue to decline, then that margin that we're making becomes smaller than the subsidy that we're providing to keep Chelan County rates as low as possible.
How would you describe the situation right now in terms of the growth of the system? I know that you have plans to build some new substations here, especially up Lake Chelan area, but that's continuing as well.
Yeah, this is a place that's definitely growing. We had the largest number of residential hookups in our history last year, over 1,000. And I would say from the first couple of months, it looks like we're going to have another year like that. So there's definitely a lot of people who want to live in Chelan County. That's no surprise to me as someone who moved here and felt that I had discovered this hidden gem. The hidden gem is getting discovered by lots of different folks out there. So we are seeing a lot of growth, and we also there are interests here, and we saw it in our strategic planning process when we talked to customers. There are interests out there in terms of economic development. How do we create more family wage jobs here? I think the first big success is the Diamond Foundry. That's a large load. That's a significant amount of electric power, not like an aluminum plant type load, but still a significant amount of power that gets taken there. But it's going to create family wage jobs here in the county. So we are working with the port and with other economic development interests here in the county to say, where are those right fits, those things where we can create some jobs without creating a lot of pressure on Chelan County PUD rates? And I would expect that we will find more of those.
Is it similar to what you were doing with your high-density load discussions and rate setting for the blockchain industry? I was going to ask you, too, what that industry looks like now. What does the demand look like? Has it leveled off since you've established those new rates?
Well, again, what we do as a consumer on utilities is, first of all, we talk to our customers and say, what do you want?
Yeah.
And we had a long public process around cryptocurrency. And I think we got a pretty clear message that that was a very heavy user of electricity, producing not very many jobs. And the community said, you know, that's not really something that we're all that interested in. Not everyone, but I would say pretty clear majority said, be very careful about that. And we heard that in our customer survey, not specifically on cryptocurrency, but when we talked about economic development. People were willing for us to incur some cost to produce economic development, but they also said, don't make it too much. Don't make our rates go up a lot as a result of that. So with cryptocurrency, what's happened is we did put a new rate in place a couple of years ago. We have seen when the increase in prices in cryptocurrency, particularly Bitcoin, occurred last year in the spring and summer, that we didn't get an increase in requests for service. So it appears to have managed that reasonably well, consistent with what we heard from our customers. And again, this is what I love about working for Public Power. You first of all say, what do you want? We can do lots of different things here. Our customers tell us what they want, then we react to that.
Oh, that's good. Let's look at the other forms of revenue that the PUD receives from its contract customers, such as, let's say, Alcoa and Puget Power, and those. Can you give us a status on that?
Yeah, so those contracts have been in place for quite a while, and they're just they've got it till 2028 for Alcoa, 2031 for Puget. So we're really in the middle years of that. They're working extraordinarily well. We have good working relationships with Puget in particular because we're continuing to deliver power to them. They get a good deal, we get a good deal. We're both happy with the way that contract is working. Alcoa, we're certainly disappointed that Alcoa is not operating. And we continue to hope that they will find a way to be able to reopen that plant. But every year that goes by, we get more concerned as to the likelihood of
It's
that
a big
plant
chunk of
operating.
money.
It's a big chunk of money. I will say I'm very happy with the fact that Alcoa has continued to be a good partner. We have not had difficult issues that we've had to resolve. Although they're not operating, they continue to pay under the contract as they're required to do. We have lots of working level issues that come up. They get resolved. They get resolved in the way that they should be resolved. It's a good partnership still, and we'll cross our fingers that that plant can come back. We did include in our performance plan this year, though, beginning to consider what should happen post 2027. What kinds of thoughts do we want to put into what comes next? Is it an extension of an Alcoa contract? Is there an alternative to that? Those are things that are we'll begin to discuss this year. They don't have to get resolved, but we should be thinking about them now.
And I know that there are other economic development efforts underway to possibly find new life for that property down there near Malaga.
Well, clearly there aren't
It's an
that
opportunity
many
zone after all.
Yeah, that's right. And there aren't that many nice pieces of flat property around. So
Right.
people are always going to be thinking about that.
Steve Wright is the PUD's general manager. They have a final public hearing on this rate plan coming up on February 3rd, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And so that will be your final opportunity to comment on this. Are you expecting action on that day?
No, because you always want to listen and take
Sure.
into account any public comment that you get. We have advertised the fact that we've had previous discussions at the board level, including our last two meetings about rates. We've only had one customer show up so far, to tell you the truth, and that one was to express support for the action that we were taking. I can't say I'm completely surprised by that because we may have worn people out with the amount of activity that we've had, the number of times that we've gone out to customers and talked to them about the fact that this is on the plate and something that we're considering. But we always welcome our customers to come to our board meetings and express their views.
Very good. Well, we really appreciate you stopping by to talk to us about this. One final thing that I wanted to ask you, and it's kind of off script here, but could have something to do at least with the expenses at the PUD, and that has to do with cybersecurity, because it has been kind of one of those front and center issues here, especially with the recent terror activity in the Middle East and the possible retaliation by Iran or other bad actors in attacking our electrical grid through cyber threat. I'm sure that you're on top of that, and that the PUD is probably aware and working to make your grid a lot safer, huh?
Constantly working to be on top of it is the way I would put it, because bad actors are constantly evolving in the threats that they expose us to. Certainly the events in Iran did send a warning flag up for everyone in the electric utility industry. I will say that we received that warning flag at Chelan PUD. The bad guys will seek any avenue they can find to get into the bulk electric power system, and even a relatively small utility like Chelan PUD could be a vehicle for them to be able to get into the bigger system and then do real damage. So we are part of a national system. We consider ourselves part of the national security defense system, that we are on the front lines just like every other electric utility that's out there. We regularly talk and discuss where those threats are coming from. We get information from the national security system. We try to make sure that we understand that, we integrate it, we take action based on the evidence that's brought forward to us. So, very big issue for us. I'd love to tell you, don't worry, it's not a problem. I can't tell you that. I worry about it all the time. Because, again, these bad guys, they're constantly thinking of new ways to try to get into our system. And the one thing I will promise you is we're going to do everything we can.
It's the world we live in.
It is, unfortunately.
Now, any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us?
Just how much I want to say thank you to Chelan County customers for the way that they participated in this process. We had nearly 3,000 customers who responded to our survey. That's amazing. Right? I mean, the folks that do survey work for us said, we're not accustomed to that kind of response, to this kind of effort. And I think the fact that Chelan County PUD customers really understand that they own this system and that their voice does matter in the decisions that get made, I think it's a wonderful thing, and I just encourage them to stay involved with us, keep working with us. We're going to do the best we can to try to represent the values of this community.
I suppose I can't let you go without at least commenting on the other parts of your system, including water, wastewater, and fiber. Those rates are also going to be going up?
Yes, a little bit different issues there. What we're trying to do, and this again came out of our customer survey, we asked the question, should we have been moving those businesses to try to make them financially sustainable, where they could stand on their own without money coming across from the electric side?
An enterprise fund, in other words. Huh?
Yeah, and our customers had a very measured response to that. Again, it was kind of like economic development. It was, yeah, but don't raise the rates too much for them. And so slight difference with respect to water and wastewater. It's a 4% annual rate increase. And for fiber, it's a 3% annual rate increase. We felt like that put them on the path. It wouldn't be right away, but it puts them on a longer-term path towards financial self-sustainability. So again, thank you to our customers. Really thoughtful response to the questions that we asked that's given us good guidance and told us the direction we should be going in.
Well, those of us who live here in north central Washington and Douglas and Chelan County, we're very, very fortunate to have the low power rates and reliable service that we do have. So we appreciate everything you're doing, Steve, and thanks for stopping by and talking to us.
Oh, thank you for having us. Again, this is a big part of the way that we can reach out to the community, and so we really appreciate the partnership we have with you.
You betcha. There's a reason why his wife calls him Mr. Wright. Steve Wright, the PUD, joining us on In Focus. I'm Steve Hare for NCW Life.